All right. Welcome to Media Morsels, the podcast about creativity and the media that feeds it. I'm Jessica, character and aesthetic enthusiast.
I'm Jamie, plot guy.
I'm Mitchie,
vibe checker and scenery chewer.
Vibe checker and scene chewer.
So we had a couple friends, a couple of guests, who really wanted to be a part of the Monster Prom episode, and we really want them to be a part of the Monster Prom episode. So we ended up postponing that for another time. So this week, instead, we bring you another
monstrous romance.
Yes.
Monster treat.
To sort of cap off the month of romance.
Well, and notably, this is the only film in our February lineup that was actually released on Valentine's Day.
It was. This one was meant to be a Valentine's flick. Mm-hmm. And so this week, we watched Warm Bodies, which came out in 2013 and was our first Valentine's Day together.
Yes.
And we went to the movies to see this together.
Mm-hmm. Yes, we did.
Y'all make me sick.
Which I guess we're kind of skipping ahead in the sequence because now we've given away our first experience of this film.
This will be a pretty, quick sort of appetizer round. Yep. Our first experience was we went to the theater together and we watched it. And I remember thinking it was really cute and really refreshing.
It was.
Considering all the other zombie media that was coming out at the time and that was really intense and brutal and brooding and grisly. This one is in stark contrast to that.
Very intentionally, most zombie media has despair as its core theme.
Yeah.
And this very purposely has hope.
Yes, it's kind of a rebuttal to a lot of the other entries in the genre. So anyway, Mitch.
Yeah, so my first experience was actually with my mother. It was an interesting kind of time frame. We typically we watched Walking Dead pretty much since it's on set, and so anything with zombies in it, we're gonna go watch it.
Yeah.
And honestly, it was really adorable, and she absolutely loved it, and it was a good time.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. So it's time for the summarizer.
Get summarized.
Okay, summarizer. Start summarizing.
All right, so, gosh, I had a really good summary framed in mind, and now I'm just completely pulling a blank.
Is it because you have whiskey in your Diet Coke?
No, that usually doesn't dull me very much.
Is it because you do not have notes?
I never keep notes. I've never once kept notes for these episodes. So, this film has your standard zombie post-apocalypse setup. The vestiges of humanity are in a walled-off part of the city. There's a neo-fascist regime. Zombies wandering about. However, this movie takes the unique perspective of the primary viewpoint character is a zombie. So immediately we are set up to have the sympathetic viewpoint of the zombies, and that is very much played with for the rest of the film. This zombie leads a troop of his friends into the city to go hunting for human meat.
Man flesh.
And
meat's back on the menu, boys.
Meat pies.
And they run across a group of survivors where we have our meat cute.
Shut up.
He locks eyes with a living girl who is the daughter of the human leader and rescues her from being eaten because he's a special zombie. Mm-hmm. And the rest of the movie follows them trying to navigate this strange connection that they've formed.
Yeah, and how it might, in fact, change the world.
Yeah?
Yeah. Well, I think this is kind of very topical, actually, since The Last of Us is out right now and very big. I feel like zombie fiction has it's had its day. It's kind of phasing out a little bit. The Last of Us is an interesting take on it, but, this came out at
the peak
height
of the zombie craze.
Yes.
The zombie craze, I feel like it was getting started when we were in high school. And it was really like, the wave was cresting right around 2013.
Yeah.
Like, market saturation had been achieved.
Well, The Walking Dead was 2010.
You had Walking Dead, you had 28 Days Later.
Yeah, 28 days, 28 weeks.
You
World
had
War Z, the book and the movie. Call of Duty Zombies.
Yeah, you had Zombie Survival Guide.
Yeah, Zombie
that came
Survival
out,
Guide.
what, freshman year of college
Yes, it
or
was.
thereabouts.
Yeah, for you guys.
Yeah,
We even had that, like, Post-it note war there for a second.
the
like,
zombie war,
Yeah, that
no,
was
like
fun.
it, and the Campus Zombies game.
Yeah.
It was the height of zombie fever.
I'm just thinking about Plants vs. Zombies. Y'all
Oh, yeah.
remember that? Man.
Lest we forget that.
Yeah, they made a sequel to that, and they made it into, like, a weird, gritty reboot.
Oh,
that's like
no.
a third-person shooter.
No!
Okay, wait. I've got something that is going to induce groans, but I need to know. Bets, how long until we get a Plants vs. Zombies movie adaptation?
No.
It's going to happen.
No.
They made an
No.
emoji movie.
No.
It's going to happen.
No.
I give it
Apollo, no.
3 years.
No.
Mark my words. Yeah, the beer popping, we can keep that in. Mark my
This
words.
is how we all feel about it.
Inside of 3 years, we're going to see a Plants vs. Zombies movie. It's going to happen.
And the thing is, like, it's in that time frame because, like, emojis, they weren't a thing for a long time, and then all of a sudden a movie. So, like, 5, 6, 7 years after Plants vs. Zombies 2, it's definitely gonna happen. Yeah,
Okay.
I'm taking those bets.
I think I'm horribly right.
Apollo, no.
Apollo with the gift of prophecy.
So, anyway, yeah, this is for all you necrophiliacs out there.
something stiffy.
No, I told you don't make that joke.
You told
I
Mitch
said-
not to make the joke, and he didn't.
That was a blanket. That was a blanket statement.
Okay, well, we do have to admit this was our stand-in Monster Fucker media because we
was.
couldn't do
It
Monster
was.
Prom, and Monster Prom does have a zombie option.
Yes.
Yeah, it does. Yeah.
You play as a zombie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You
yeah.
get to play R.
Yeah, that's one of the options. So, all right. Well, without further ado, let's go ahead and bring out the steamy. No, it's not a steamy main course. Let's bring out the main course.
It's brains.
It's brains. Okay, so this movie opens with our zombie.
It is important to note, this movie is based on a book, and the book was based on the tale of Romeo and Juliet.
Yes.
However, since we are in the spoilers section of the episode, it does not have Romeo and Juliet's ending, at least in the film.
Yeah, the books apparently do.
The book did. But because this was a Valentine's couples watch movie, that probably would have landed with a dead thud
like
if
a
they
lead
had
balloon.
decided to kill off the two romantic leads.
Well,
so they didn't do that.
So they made the very smart choice of tweaking it a bit so that it's more of a Beauty and the Beast type story, which we all know and love. Mm-hmm. So
Tale as old as time.
Tale as
Song
old as
as
time.
old as rhyme.
Well, I was also thinking like the OG monster fucker story.
I mean,
Monster fucking goes way back.
who of us did not have an awakening with Beauty and the Beast? And who of us was not disappointed with his human form?
You're outing yourself, man.
I don't care. Everybody knows that Beast's human form is a disappointment.
Yeah, he wasn't really my cup of tea. Okay, so we begin with R, who is our zombie character, and he is painfully 2013 hipster
yes.
mode. You know, it begins with him being like,
He's a zombie that listens to vinyl.
yeah,
And
yeah.
he has a very nice internal monologue.
Well, he has this internal monologue that's kind of revolving around like, why am I so weird?
Yes, self-effacing.
This is awkward. And I was like, weird and awkward were kind of like I don't know,
the in
generational
things to be at that time.
Yeah, those were kind of like low-key cool.
Well, It's the I'm not like other girls, but for boys.
But for boys, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm weird.
Yeah. So he's wandering around this airport where he presumably at some point was turned. And very early on, they make it clear that it does not matter how the zombie apocalypse happens. None of the zombies remember. And R's just like, it doesn't matter.
Here we are now.
Here we are. We're dead now. And this is the world. And it sucks, but sometimes I try to remember what it was like before. It must have been so much better. And so we already very early on see that he is a character that, like, he's already longing for something more.
Well, and he's shown to have a little bit more interiority than the average zombie.
Yeah, he's clearly thinking things, and I mean, the other zombies might be too, but he seems to be a little bit more
connected
with it.
to that.
Yeah.
Well, and also, importantly, right after he says, oh, things must have been so much better, like, the airport flashes back to pre-disaster humanity.
Yeah.
And everybody's, like, you know, on their phones, disengaged, not talking to each other. That is a very thematic component that will be coming back.
Yeah, that's kind of a sneaky little...
A hint at the larger themes of the film.
Yeah, and very early on, too, they introduce the concept of bonies. So, like, R is a corpse. He is a, you know, human-looking...
Standard shambling zombie.
Yeah. He's pretty well preserved, all things considering.
He's very, like, Night of the Living Dead, like, still very much people-shaped, awkwardly stumbling around.
Very young Tom Cruise looking.
Honestly, like, not as much in the early parts, but when he gets his glow up later, yeah, you can see there's some similarity there. Your mileage may vary.
Yeah, some similarity, but he's a corpse, but he introduces the concepts of another kind of zombie, which is a very skeletal, almost like kind of shriveled, mummified kind of zombie called bonies, who he basically is like, you know, I eat people and I at least feel conflicted about it, but these bony guys, they don't care. They're just like basically vicious.
Past the point of no return.
Yes, and he says eventually we all become them. So, but he is not there yet.
It is the death beyond death.
I just wonder, how do the bonies actually function?
Well, that's a great thing about this movie, and we were discussing this off air, but this is a great way to pick it back up. This movie it's stylized. It dispenses with, like, it already establishes how the zombie plague happened doesn't matter, and really, like, most of the science of what happens for the rest of the film doesn't matter. Why is the electricity in the airport still running? Because it's funny. Why
is there plenty of gas to get you from point A to point B in the cars?
Because it's funny to watch a zombie drive a sports car badly
and wreck into a pillar.
Like, it sacrifices realism to sell the theme.
Yeah, because this is a story that's not about gritty, grisly realism. It is about that is just a framing device for the kind of story that they wanted to tell.
Yeah.
To get these two characters to interact in a certain way.
There's two ways that you can go about it. You can either just say, why? Because that's the story we're telling. Or, if you prefer a Simpsons reference, a wizard did it.
Yeah. A wizard did it. Boom. It was magic.
Magic plague.
And magic has, you know... Nope, there's no explanation needed. That's it. It's just magic. So R eventually, like in this early montage, goes and finds his friend, another zombie that he occasionally visits with, and they just sort of like
grunt
awkwardly
at
stare at each other and grunt at each other, and sometimes, you know, find words like hungry and city. And so they go out on a little hunt, a little pizza run, human pizza.
Human pizza pie.
And right around this time, a group of the survivors leave their walled city to go get some medical supplies.
I was about to say, it's very striking, this walled city, because it looks very castle-like.
Well, but it also reminds me of, like, The Last of Us. But, of course, this is, like, 10 years before that.
Long before the recent television adaptation. But the survivors are sent out for medical supplies at the bidding of fascist dictator John Malkovich.
Yes, and his daughter is among that party. His daughter and her boyfriend. So it's Julie and Perry. And Perry is already showing signs of being just extremely...
Fascist Junior.
Well, and also disconnected and anxious and traumatized in general. And so Julie reaches to hold his hand before they go out into the city, and he withdraws his hand because he's not looking for connection.
Yeah, he's focused on the mission.
He's got some pretty nice hair, though.
Yeah. I forget the name of this actor, but he was in a bunch of films around this time, because this movie shares DNA with, like, not only the zombie craze that was happening around this same time, but also young adult dystopian fiction. And this guy was in a couple of those.
And this was also the height of...
I think he was the main squeeze in Divergent, if I remember right.
Yeah, I think so.
So, yeah, this movie is the cross-section of those two trends.
Yeah. So they're getting ready to go out on this mission. They go out into the city to go get some medical supplies. And that's where our two groups initially run into each other, the corpses and the humans, the survivors. And
it is not a happy run-in.
No, it's not. Pretty immediately, the corpses find the survivors, and they break into the pharmacy room that the survivors are in and start instantly, like, killing people and taking them down. And pretty quickly, R sees Perry and kind of goes after him.
Well, but doesn't he see Julie first?
So what happens is R comes into the room first. Perry hits him because previous to this, Julie's friend, Nora, she's also, like, important, and she's on this mission
in the adventuring party,
and she's like, I thought I heard something, and Perry kind of waves it off. He's like, this is too important, we can't abandon this mission. And Julie's like, dude, I think we should bail because this isn't worth our lives. And he's like, well, I disagree. And she's like, you sound like my dad. And he's like, well, that's a compliment. And she's like,
no, it's not.
Yeah. And so he's kind of like, hey, you're just being jumpy, whatever. And he's like walking through the room, and then behind him, like, the zombies, or you can see them in the doorway, and they come through, and R is like the first one through, and Perry like hits him with the butt of his rifle, and all hell breaks loose. And as R is trying to recover from being, hit with the butt of this rifle, he looks up, and there she is.
The meet cute happens.
This beautiful, fierce, sexy
warrior
girl with her shotgun. And
I've got to say, honestly, like, I have a thing for dangerous women.
Yeah.
And when she was whipping her hair out of her face and cocking that shotgun, I was like, yeah.
With murder in her eyes.
With murderous intent. And then there's a boot knife that comes out later.
Yeah.
Yes.
She's a straight up badass, and she stays a badass throughout the film.
That's right. She is a female lead who holds her own.
She does.
She is never... I mean, she's damseled, like, a little bit, but she really holds her own.
Well, and even when she's damseled, she's, like, actively trying not to be damseled. She's trying to save herself.
Well, yeah, actually, she isn't damseled, because, like, the definition of damseled is, like, you get captured and you do nothing to help yourself. She is constantly trying to help herself.
Yeah. And this is the same actress who's in A Discovery of Witches, by the way.
That's right.
Yeah.
I like her.
Yeah.
Even though that show kind of went, like, towards the end.
Someday we'll talk about that, but
we will.
Today is not that day. So, yeah, he sees her, and he's just like, oh, my God. Look at that lady. So much life.
I definitely don't want to eat her.
Yeah. And I think it's the fact that she is, like, fighting for her life. There's just something very, like intense about her that he's drawn to. So he gets up and he starts, being drawn towards her. And that's when Perry gets in his way.
Yes.
And Perry shoots him in, like, the shoulder or something. But then Perry's gun is, I don't know, something happens to his gun or something. And then R lunges at him, grabs him, drags him down to the ground, and
Eats him.
Nice watch.
Nice watch, he says, freeze frame.
This movie is full of funny asides, because that was, like, the thing around this time. Funny asides and internal monologues, and I bet you're wondering how I got in this situation.
Yeah, record scratch.
Very much of that time.
Yeah, so he very quickly starts eating Perry, but he is specifically going after his brains, because in this one, zombies can, like, subsist off of other body parts. And if they don't eat the brains, they'll rise again. But if they eat the brains, they absorb their memories. And that's what makes him feel emotions and feel alive again.
Well, it's also like a side of, you know, this is a mercy killing. Like, we have to kill you, but we're going to try and make it to where you don't have to experience what we're experiencing, too. Like that.
You could look at it that way, but
there is
very
that
much
interpretation, and Julie kind of takes that interpretation later in the film.
Yeah, but R in the moment is very much like, I can't help it.
But this is for me.
The brains are the best part. It makes me feel alive.
Well, and it does this interesting thing where he gets Perry's memories of Julie.
Yeah.
So he was already kind of interested in her for, you know, just at face value. But then he has all the memories of, like, her romantic partnership and her name.
Yes. And with her name, you know, things are not looking good. Almost everybody in the group is dead. And Julie is she's out of ammo. So he starts kind of, like, lurching towards her, and she, like, takes out a boot knife and throws it at him, and it hits his heart. And it doesn't stop him.
Stab through the heart, and you're to blame.
And if I wasn't in love with her for the shotgun, the boot knife did it.
Boot knife right to the heart. Is there anything more romantic?
Yeah.
So...
Was Nora... Like, okay, so Julie's friend Nora, was she in that?
She was.
How did she escape?
Well, she managed to hide underneath one of the pharmacy counters.
Oh, okay, I might have been right in my notes.
Yeah.
Yeah. But R gets a hold of Julie. He says her name, which kind of gives her pause, and she's still really freaked
a zombie
out.
Just spoke to her.
Yeah, she's never heard zombies speak at all. And he smears his, like, gross juices
Dead
on
man
her
juice.
face.
Iker.
Yeah, Iker.
However it's pronounced.
And then he starts to, like, drag her away. He does that to, like, to camouflage her scent. And
So the other zombies don't come for her.
yeah, and then he's like, okay, you're coming with me now.
Kind of kidnaps her. And this is where, like, the sort of, like, the Beauty and the Beast parallels come in, because she's spirited away to his lair at the airport inside an old, like, Boeing 747 or something, where he keeps all his treasures, including her and his collection of vinyls.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
yeah, he spirits her away. At first, she's really, really freaked out.
Yeah, just
obviously.
Frozen terrified, as you would be.
But he is very careful to be as non-threatening as possible. Although he's like, I'm so
Don't be
awkward.
creepy, don't be creepy,
Don't be creepy, don't be creepy.
I'm pretty sure I said that during a job interview once.
B's creepy.
Honestly, being kind of a hipster 20-something around the time this movie came out, I felt this internal monologue.
Yeah.
I get it.
I mean, at the time, it was very, like, it was very of the time.
Yes.
It was very of the time. So, yeah. So he takes her into his Boeing 747, and he's got all this stuff, and she's immediately just kind of like, okay, this is getting weirder and weirder. And he keeps
like,
trying
I can see, like, intention here.
Yeah. And he keeps trying to talk to her, and he keeps trying to, like, take care of her. And over the course of the next few days, she does try to escape a few times, because at the end of the day, this is a fucking zombie, and she's in the middle of, like, Zombie Central, and she's like, I've got to get out of here. She does not trust him.
But because she's in the middle of Zombie Central, every time she tries to get out of the plane, the other zombies start closing in.
She ultimately has to trust him. And then, you know, the more she's around him, the more she realizes there's something really different going on with him. And she enjoys his company. But again...
They even get a montage together.
They get a montage. They're listening to vinyl records together.
You said something earlier, Jamie, about, like, music potentially being, like, a link to...
Yeah, so, yeah, we were kind of talking about this. Like, what makes R different than the other zombies? Like, why is he
Why was he sort of like...
Patient zero.
Why was he patient zero for this change?
He was closest to being able to reclaim humanity. Why was that? And, like, his thing is music. And, like, at the beginning of the movie when he's by himself, he puts on some music and he listens to it in his little plane shack. And... you know, like, it's sort of implied that he's been collecting and listening to music this entire post-apocalypse.
Yeah. And music being art that...
makes you feel.
Yeah.
My theory being, that's what let him sort of, like, keep one finger hold onto humanity.
Yes. Through his...
Hipsterness.
unashamed hipsterness, yeah.
His
unabashed
airplane bachelor pad.
Yeah, unabashed hipsterness. So, yeah, he's showing Julie all his vinyls, and he says, you know, it's because the sound is so much more alive. That's why he likes it.
Hipster.
And yeah, super hipster.
Although, like, we can't talk because we were literally in a record store just today. So.
But we weren't buying vinyl because we don't have anything to play it on. So
yeah, but still.
We know a few listeners probably do have a vinyl player.
Yeah.
And we respect that.
Yes, we do. But it's also very, like, again, of the time.
Yes.
When there was that resurgence happening.
Yes.
Oh, there's also the delightful scene where R can't really communicate very clearly, so he's always shrugging, and there's just something so, like, 2010s about the way that Julie is like, there you go again, shrugging. That's a very non-committal gesture, like, shrugger, stop shrugging.
Fun fact, there's about maybe 13 shrugs in there. We might have miscounted a few.
Well, I think that you started counting after this scene. Yeah. And there was at least another 13 before this.
Yeah.
So, like, our signature gesture is just the...
Yeah. Shrugger, stop shrugging. Oh my god. So...
It's very, like, 2012, 2013.
Yes. Eventually, she really is like, dude, I really have to go. I can't stay here forever with you. And as... she's trying to escape and he catches up to her, there's all these other zombies that have cornered her once again.
And she has a weed whacker.
Yeah,
which,
she's
again,
ready
like,
to take him on.
Why does the weed whacker still have gas? Where did she find a weed whacker in an airport? None of these questions matter because it's fun.
Yes. And he, like, punches his best friend, M, in the face because M is like one of that group of zombies that wants to eat her. And M is like, what? She's living. We, eat her.
Eat. Yeah.
Eat. And R is just like, dude, no. She's like, essentially, she's mine. He doesn't say that, but that's like the feeling you get. And
yeah, he's like,
M
what?
is really confused by this, but then the bonies show up because they have smelled fresh meat too. And so R and Julie start running from them, and the bonies are closing in, and then M gets in this little, like... It's like a baggage...
Well, yeah, it's the little motorized cart that they put at the head of the roller baggage bins at airports to load the planes.
Yeah.
And he runs over the bonies.
And he's like, I want, basically, like, want to help her. He's like, I want to... You know what? You're right, R. I don't understand you, but I want to help you because I'm a ride or die friend. And this movie has actually a couple of ride or die friends. We love to see it.
Yeah, so, like, I was making the weirdest comparison to Down with Love.
Yeah.
Because once again, the male and female leads both have ride or die friends that help them throughout the entire film.
Yes. So M gets them out of there and he sends them on their way, but not before he and a few other zombies see R and Julie holding hands. Like, in a moment of fear, she takes his hand and he, like, takes hers, and it sort of, like, comforts her. And all the zombies are like, whoa, what? I didn't even know that was possible. And it's sort of like
an awakening.
Yeah, it jolts them out of, like, their normal mode of operation, and they're like, wow, do I remember something like that? It makes them pause for a second. It breaks through the the fog.
Well, and also importantly, it's like a really strong thematic parallel to at the beginning when Julie reached for Perry's hand and he knocked it away.
Yeah.
So at the beginning, we have sort of like this loss of hope in humanity.
This rejection of connection.
Leading to the end of something.
Yes.
And now we have the acceptance of connection leading to the beginning of something.
Yeah.
We forgot to mention, like, whenever he first started listening to music, his first initial heartbeat was whenever he was sitting down and listening to music with her.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
His very first, like, his heart beats exactly once.
Yes. And throughout the movie, there's these critical time periods where he is
he and the other zombies.
Yeah, they're experiencing something deeply emotional, and it jumpstarts their heart a little bit, and they get a little less corpsey every time. So they leave the city, they manage to get out of Dodge, and they drive into the suburbs. It's like pouring rain, and they're in a convertible, so they get soaked.
Well, and Mitch was pointing out, like, this is the first of several instances where we either have rain, falling water, something. Some
submergence in water.
At a point of, like, sort of an important emotional conversion.
Yeah, exactly. It's sort of a miniature rebirth in a way.
It happens 4 times exact.
3 times it's a shower, and 1 time it's like more of like a full body submersion in a pool of water, which, you know, if you're of the Christian persuasion, you can't help but make a connection.
Mitch handily pointed out it's a baptism at the end.
Yeah,
and we'll get there.
That's how, you know, a lot of practicing Christians or culturally Christian people would see it.
And that's not just our read. I feel like the movie very intentionally does that.
Yeah.
But we'll get there.
Yeah, we'll get there. So they end up going into these suburbs and taking shelter in one of these houses, and there's definitely an element of nostalgia about the types of technology they use, because she finds a Polaroid camera and they start playing with it together. And
there's the vinyl, there's the Polaroid. What else was there?
There's a stereograph.
Oh yeah, the stereograph.
Like,
the original 3D goggles invented by the Victorians.
Yes. So there's this interesting, like, sort of nostalgic, like, looking back sort of thing. But that's really important in this story, because she's like, it's important to remember what things were like before. That's like Julie's big thing.
But I was just thinking it was interesting that she's interested in looking back when she's like, hey, well, what's your actual name? Aren't you curious? And he's like, no, it's just R.
I'm interested in looking forward.
Yeah.
And I mean, but it's like it takes both.
And there's value in both.
Yeah.
Yeah. So they are sheltering from the rain in this house, and they hear vehicles outside, and Julie looks outside and she sees it's her dad and a whole bunch of military vehicles searching this suburb. And she has this realization, like, oh my God, they wouldn't hesitate. They would shoot you, R, and then everything that you are would be gone. And it's her kind of realizing the injustice of that, and, like, I mean, it makes sense when it's just corpses, like, running at you to eat you, but maybe there's something else going on here, and maybe they do have some individuality, and what does that mean? So, and also helps her be like, oh, I really don't want to lose you.
Yeah.
You're really important to me. So then there's this, like, funny moment where she's like, I know you don't sleep, which is stressed from the beginning that zombies do not sleep and they do not dream.
Yeah.
The only way they can sort of dream is when they eat brains. And there's actually a bit before this, there's this really interesting thing that happens with R, because he's eating her boyfriend's brains.
Yeah, he has, like, pieces of it in his, like, hoodie pockets.
Over the course of several days. And twice when he eats it, it's like these semi-happy memories, or, like, well, there's one where, you know, it explains kind of why Perry was essentially suicidal. Was he went looking for his dad, and his dad had been turned into a zombie and
tried to
eat him, and then Julie shot his zombie dad through the head, and that was just kind of too much for him.
Well, yeah, I think this lays the groundwork for later on how he's able to find his way into the city.
Yes.
Because he gets Perry's memory of Julie finding a secret back way out of the city.
Yes. So, and then the last time that he noshes on Perry's brains, he has the memory of
him eating Perry.
And, like, seeing that, like, monstrousness of, you know, himself for, I don't know, like, maybe the first time. And he's, like, really disgusted and, like,
horrified.
Freaked out by that. But
he actually spits out the rest of his brains.
Yeah. So so zombies don't sleep, they don't dream. So he's sitting downstairs, and Julie kind of comes down the stairs, and she's like, could you, like, I mean, these big houses, they kind of freak me out. So, like, you could come sleep up in there with me, but, like, on the floor. And he's like, oh, shit. Okay. Be cool.
Uh-huh.
And so he goes up there, and then the second, like, you know, half of that is she's like, I'm freezing. My, like, clothes are soaking wet. I'm gonna lay them out to dry. And she's like, don't look, okay? And he's like, okay.
But then maintains steady eye contact.
And he, you know, so...
Shit.
Yeah, holy shit.
Yeah, he's panicking as, you know, any early 20-something guy would if a girl started stripping to her underwear in front of him.
Yeah, and then she, you know, gets back under the covers. And then she's talking to him about how... She's like, I see you trying so hard. She's like, it's hard. It must be hard for you to be locked in there because you are trying to connect. You are trying to express yourself. And she's like, there's a lot of living people I know who don't do that. Dad.
Perry. Yeah, Perry was going down the same road as her father.
And R feels really guilty about it because he's like, she doesn't know that I killed her boyfriend. So he finally confesses. He took Perry's watch because he was like, haha, nice watch. And he puts it on the bedside table, and Julie is very, like, she had already kind of prepared herself for Perry's death even before it happened because she kind of saw the writing on the wall, and she kind of knew that it was R, but having it confirmed is another thing entirely. So she turns away from him. It sort of drives this, like, wedge between them.
We have a minor, like, you know, liar revealed, but it's not, like, super bad.
Yeah,
because it only builds up for about a third of the movie, and it's resolved fairly quickly.
Yes. And then he falls asleep and dreams.
Well, it's interesting because, like, what he experiences is halfway between the weird flashbacks he's been having and a true dream.
Yeah.
Because it opens with Julie and Perry and Nora clearly in some kind of, like, memory that they've had.
Yeah.
But at some point it forks off into they're directly addressing R, so it becomes a dream.
Yeah. And he's very confused because he's like, but the dead don't dream, and I'm dreaming, so what does that mean? But when he wakes up the next morning, Julie is gone, and he is devastated. And...
Well, he's like, I get it, and maybe I shouldn't have hoped for more, but man, this sucks.
But I should go back, and I should give up hope, and I should do this and that. I need to stop being so weird. And while he's walking towards home, there's another rain shower, and he starts being like, God, I'm cold.
Wait.
Why am I cold?
I'm cold?
Yeah.
I don't get cold.
And on the way, he runs into M, his friend, and a whole bunch of other zombies, like the zombies who were there when he and Julie held hands.
Well, and there's been a brief scene or two where we go back to M and the other zombies in the airport where they're having their kind of own emotional awakenings. Like, there's something happening.
Yeah. So you were saying earlier that it's a magic plague? Well, friendship is magic.
Yeah, the magic of friendship.
It's R's connection to Julie, Romeo and Juliet, if you haven't put it together already, that kicks it off, but it's M's connection to R that starts spreading it.
Yeah, the chain reaction.
Yeah.
So we love to see a story that celebrates all kinds of love.
Yes.
So M meets him with a whole bunch of other people, and he's like explaining to R, the Bonies ran me out because
they recognize them as different.
Yeah,
now.
we're different now. They're after you, and they're after her.
Mm-hmm.
And and he also is like, last night I saw pictures in my head. I saw memories, and
they're all dreaming.
And they're
now.
all beginning to dream. And it's just like, whoa, holy shit. And there's also this moment where R confesses, like, oh, she went home, and he's really sad, and M tries to console him, and then he does that, that guy thing, that bro thing of like, bitches, man. Which, I don't know, it's
very 2013.
Yeah. It's dismissive, but it's also like, that is how I'd like dudes be like sometimes.
And this movie, this PG-13 movie, gets its one fuck of the film in this scene.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Where, R and M are trying to figure out, okay, what do we do next? And they're like, okay, we need to like go to the human city and try to communicate this change to them somehow. And, all the second tier zombies are just sort of
like
groaning in the background, and M translates as, they say, fuck yeah.
And I have a stipulation. I think the fuck could have been used a little better, but we'll get to that.
We will get to that. And honestly, this is a really fun game for any PG-13 movie.
Yeah.
If you have a PG-13 movie that you enjoy and it does not already have an F-bomb in it, where would be the best place to put it?
Fool of a fucking toque.
They have a fucking cave troll.
We've made so many Lord of the Rings references in this this episode, which is...
Viewers, we're massive nerds.
Yeah.
That is a foregone conclusion.
Yeah. So they start heading back to the city, and Julie has reached the city. Her dad has to check to make sure she's not a zombie before she's welcomed back, but she does pass muster. Obviously, she's not a zombie.
John Malkovich is also wearing a very, very nice, like, military-grade, like, crimson jacket in this scene, and I really just needed to say that.
So she's come back. She's gone back into the cage that she hates so much, and she's reconnected with her friend Nora, and
she spills the beans to her.
Yeah, she's like, I mean, we don't even know that much about corpses, and you know what? Like, the crazy thing is, I miss him, and Nora is doing like, actually, like, this is what girl like friends would do, which is like, so like you miss him, like in a boyfriend way?
Like, you want a zombie boyfriend?
She's like, I wish that the internet still existed so I could look up what's wrong with you. And I'm like, it's necrophilia. That's the word you're looking for. Except, like, I say that, but I think that what Julie has with R at this point really is more like a schoolyard crush.
He's not a non-sexual affection.
Yeah, he is not a sexual being to her at all. But
he doesn't even have any blood flow.
Yeah. Well, and she doesn't even like look at him like that until later. So right now it's more like, this is a person who is kind and has protected me, and
is a person,
and I like them. So right now it's more like a sort of a schoolyard crush, I would say. But R infiltrates the city, and he goes to Julie's door, and she's out on the balcony.
They have the balcony scene. Yes. So this is where it comes back, like, it's been Beauty and the Beast. Now it gets a little bit more Romeo and Juliet because they have the balcony scene.
Yes. And she's like, oh my God, R, what are you doing here? And he's like, I had to see you. And so she's like, okay, get inside before somebody like blows your fucking head off. Mm-hmm. And Nora meets him and sees him, and she's just like fascinated because she's like, he's talking, you don't smell? He doesn't smell.
Yeah, she gets like first-hand experience of this change he is going through.
So they're talking, and they're like, why did you come back? And he's like, we're changing. I want to show people that we're changing. And they're just like, dude, they're not going to buy it. And he's like, well, okay, if they're not going to buy that, then like buy this. The Bonies are after all of us. Yeah. And they're like, fuck, what?
And we need to do something about that.
Yeah, Julie's like, we need to tell my father this right away. And Nora's like, girl, your father's fucking crazy.
Yep.
And
they also have their first hug there, too.
Previous to this, when Julie greets him and brings him inside, they hug each other. And she's like, wow, you're like warmer than I remember.
Mm-hmm.
So he's a warm body.
Title drop. He's a little bit more alive than the last time.
Yeah. And so then you have this scene that's also very 2013 where they're figuring out how to convince her dad that he needs to listen to her. And she's like, well, maybe if we bring R and we can show him how much they've changed, blah, blah, blah. And they're like, but we need to get him through the city first. So then like, oh, well, what if we put makeup on him? And of course, again, it's 2013. So he as a guy is like, no. And they're like, yes. And so then you have this whole montage of them putting makeup on.
You have this montage. Nora puts on a Pretty Woman with a diegetic music kind of drop.
And then, you know, they switch songs. But
yeah, and then and this is very 2013 hipster because they start like playing M83 as he's doing his like sexy dude in the shower.
Yeah, he is getting the makeover glow up. It's very rare for dudes to get like the makeup glow up.
Yes.
And normally it's a woman who's having the like sexy shower scene, but he's getting like a version of the sexy
your slow-mo shower scene.
Yeah, he has the slow-mo shower scene where we watch the water like flow over his body and, you know, cleaning him and whatever. And then he comes out and Julie gets to have the like, oh shit moment that most men get with the like when the woman goes through the glow up.
And Nora's also like, dude, you're hot.
Yeah. and Julie's just like, oh, fuck. Uh-oh. And so they manage to sneak him through this city and get to her father, John Malkovich. And they're trying to tell him something is happening and like, I really need to talk to you, Dad. And he's like,
but they're getting ready for a big counteroffensive against the Bonies.
Yeah, because he's like, there's corpses and skeletons that are amassing outside the city and we don't know what they want, but they're probably going to overrun us. So like, get back to the house. And she's like, no, you need to listen to me, Dad. And she's not making a lot of headway. So R tries to intervene and very quickly her dad is just like, what the fuck? Is this a corpse? And she's like, Dad, he's like different. He's different. And he's like, I don't fucking care. And he whips out like a gun. He's like, I killed your mother when she turned into a corpse. That's exactly what I'm going to do to him. And then R does manage to say something. He says like, you know, we want to help. And her dad is a little like taken aback by the fact that he's talking.
Yeah, he's just not receptive to it.
No, and that's when Nora whips out her like Glock
and then she's my gun.
And she's just like, okay,
I'm
this
sorry,
is
Mr.
over.
Grigio, or whatever.
Grigio, I think.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Mr. Grigio.
And she's like, you guys need to like go. And so Julie and R run off.
You wouldn't pull that trigger.
And she's like, yes, I would.
And in that moment, I 100% believe that Nora would shoot him.
Yeah, Nora's like, I mean, you kind of suck though.
It's like, I hate you. Of course I was shooting.
Yeah. So R and Julie run to where they left the rest of the zombies because R had left like a bunch of the zombies that had come with him somewhere outside the city or kind of in the underbelly of the wall or whatever. And they're like, okay, we're ready to fight. And there's like a lot more of them than there were when he left.
Yeah, it started with maybe like in the airport.
A dozen?
Yeah, in the airport there was like a dozen. And then when they meet on the road, there's like 20. Now there's like 100 plus.
Yeah.
One basket full of zombies.
Yes. And they're like, we're ready.
Yeah.
We're ready to fight the Bonies.
Fight.
Yeah.
Yes. And then the Bonies are there and they're like breaking through the skylights.
Yeah, so this like the scene is kind of like there's like a giant skylight and it really reminds me of
iRobot. Yes.
Whenever the robots are all trying to like break in through the skyscraper.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, they're pounding in on this like glass domed ceiling. It's not 1-to-1, but it's close.
Vintage 2004.
Yeah. So now all-out battle breaks out, and R and Julie are still running, and during...
in the meantime, the human forces are showing up to all of this.
Yeah, and they're like, what the fuck? Because all these corpses are fighting are fighting the Bonies when they get there, and they're like, wait, what?
They're helping us?
They're helping us? And then...
One dude is just like, hey, who do we shoot? And this, my friends, is where I would put the fuck.
Yeah.
Who do we shoot? Shoot this motherfucker!
Yeah.
M tosses one of the Bonies at the soldiers.
And he says, shoot this asshole, or something like that.
This asshole. And I'm like, no. This motherfucker.
Yeah.
That would have been an excellent alternate use of the F-bomb.
There's also this really cute scene, I interpret it as very cute,
Yes.
where this one human soldier is pinned down, like all his other buddies have been killed by the Bonies, and he's about to be killed, and then all of a sudden this other kind of big hunky corpse comes along and kills the Bonies, and then
with like a propane tank or something.
and he looks at the soldier looks at him. There's a look happening, and
there's energy.
There's
an
energy to it, and he holds out his hand, and the soldier takes it, and I'm like,
there's a romantic B plot happening here that we never get to see.
So R and Julie, though, they are like running, and they get trapped, and they open the door, and it's like they're somehow like are in this like stadium part of the
it's like a baseball stadium, and they've ended up on the upper floors.
Yeah,
and now they're on the exterior, maybe 4+ stories up.
Yeah, and there's this like sort of shallow pool below, but they have nowhere to go, and R is like, I will protect you. Don't worry. And so they jump off, and he's underneath her. They spin so that he's underneath her, and he takes the blow. They plunge into this pool, and he hits hard. And Julie is fine. She's really worried about R. She, because he doesn't come right back up. So she pulls him up, and he starts... like he responds again. He like sort of wakes up, and then she can't help herself. She kisses him, and so they start making out. And he's still kind of corpsey at this point, but he's like on the cusp of changing.
Well, I mean, throughout the entire film, it's also shown that his color grading has started like coming from like a monochrome almost, and like every bit of scenery that he's like, slightly more human, and like he gets a little bit pinker, his mouth gets cleaner, his like scars and stuff get less pronounced.
Well, he still has scars, but it's like I think the veins kind of recede.
The veins recede.
Well, and importantly, this is that baptism imagery where he goes down, it seems like he's dead, and then he comes back to life.
It's this rebirth.
And it's shown through his eyes. His eyes get less cloudy, and they turn their natural blue.
Yeah. So they're making out, and then finally, like, they look at each other, and his eyes go back to normal. He's
fully human
again, and then he gets shot.
Well, and I'm pretty sure the place he gets shot in his shoulder is the same place that Perry shot him at the very beginning of the movie.
Yeah, similar. Yes. And it's Julie's dad and a whole bunch of soldiers, and they are, I don't know how much they saw. They must have seen her like macking on like a corpse, presumably, and. He's like, next one's through the head, Julie, back up. And she's trying to protect him, and she's like, no, you don't understand. And then they realize that he's like bleeding, and she's like, corpses don't bleed. And that's like the big like resolution where it's like, yeah, he's human. But like the whole time I'm sitting there and I'm like, yeah, he's bleeding a lot.
Yeah. Is he going to die again?
Yeah, like he becomes human just in time to fucking die. But so, and everybody's like, ha ha ha, whoa, you're bleeding. And he's like sitting there like, ouch. So
this whole movie is about hope. In a different plot unfolding, this is probably the moment in the movie where John Malkovich would have ate it. Because he's been a dick the entire movie.
Yeah.
And this would have been his, like, comeuppance moment. This movie is about hope, and it's about redemption and all of that.
It's about reconnection.
I still kind of wanted him to die. I know it serves the themes better for him to live. But he's been such a dick the whole time.
He doesn't once say sorry.
Yes, he does. He actually does say sorry.
Does he?
Yes, because they're he's like driving them back,
well,
and like
it's offhanded.
Oh, yeah, it's offhanded.
It's
but
very
he does say sorry.
non-committal.
Like he's
Like
driving.
a shrug?
A little bit.
He's driving them back to the city, and nobody has bandaged.
He's still just bleeding.
Shoulder. He's just sort of holding pressure on it, and John Malkovich looks back there and he's like, "Still bleeding?" And R's like, "Yeah," and he's like, "Good, sorry." And that's it. So he does say sorry.
That is the extent of his redemption arc, and I'm like,
Yeah, but he does reconnect with his daughter, which he's been very estranged from, and they've not seen eye to eye. But with this, and sort of this sort of epilogue of the story, they're like, R's like, I'd like to say that we saved the Bonies, but honestly, we just straight up killed them because they were, past the point that love would cure them. But everyone else, all the corpses, did start to learn how to live again and learn how to like reconnect with life.
Yeah, and he was also like, killing off all the Bonies was a great bonding experience for us and the humans.
Yeah, it brought us so close together. But over time, all the corpses are becoming more and more human and reintegrating into society and reconnecting with each other. And in the end, R and Julie are sitting on this like high point to watch the wall fall around the city because they don't need it anymore. They've, at least in their area, they have found the cure, sort of, and they can begin reclaiming the rest of the city. And Julie is like, so do you want a name? You can pick any name you want. And he's like, no, I like R. And she's like, well, don't you
want the life you had before?
Yeah. And he's like, no, I want this one, which is this really nice, like, bridging the past and the future sort of thing.
It's a good button on the plot.
So this whole plot is about nihilism versus optimism and disconnection versus connection. That's why I think, like, in the beginning when he's remembering the last parts of the airport, like, in the living times, everybody is sort of alienated. They're all looking, I mean, I know this is so cliched, like this technology does not automatically mean that we're all jacked into it and disconnected from each other.
You damn kids and your phones. Like this is not intended to be that message.
But symbolically, it does here kind of underscore this point that maybe part of the problem in the first place was humans were already so disconnected from each other and from like their present that when they became zombies, they didn't, I mean, I don't know, like they didn't have like...
Well, it's almost like they became zombies because of the disconnection. It's the reconnect that cured it.
And it was reconnecting with other people and forging relationships not only with other people but with themselves and with nature, that and everyday little activities that brings them back to life and makes them feel human again.
You heard it here live, folks. Social media and cell phones caused the zombie apocalypse.
Yeah.
Yes. Which, I mean...
Yeah, well, maybe. Look, you're already groaning like mumbling like a zombie.
But yeah, that's the film. It ends with this optimism of we can rebuild the world.
Yeah, which honestly, in 2013, it just seemed kind of like, that's nice.
Kind of like a trite, optimistic, like, this is nice.
Yeah, but from 2023, I'm just like, God damn, this is refreshing.
Well, and honestly, like, it's aged pretty well, because, like, I feel like this is still a message that we really need.
Yeah,
like,
I would, instead of living in this, like, nihilism of, like, the world is going to shit and there's nothing anybody can do about it, and, like, why even bother? I really, personally, want to be like, no, we can do things, even small things, but also big things, and there is reason to hope, and we have to hope.
And the solutions are found in community outreach.
Yes, solutions are found when we work together.
In the book version of this tale, it is a lot less optimistic because it is more true to its Romeo and Juliet roots.
They both die in the end.
Yeah, in that pivotal moment where they are, like, cornered by the Bonies on the wall of the baseball stadium, there isn't a pool of water below them. They just jump to their deaths.
Yeah, or something like that. I'm not 100% sure on the specifics. I just know that they both die in the end.
If you guys have read the book and its sequels, because there are sequels
somehow,
let us know in a post or comment somewhere around.
Yeah, we'd love to talk about it, because that's really interesting. I personally feel like the movie's changed ending serves the themes
way better.
And also makes for a better Valentine's Day date watch.
Yes, it does.
Sounds like it's time for dessert.
It might be time for dessert. That would be actually a pretty, this has been a pretty tight episode. Probably because this is a good movie, but it's also fairly uncomplicated.
It's a simple movie.
Well, yeah. I mean, we were talking earlier about how it's a very tight-knit and well-paced movie.
Yeah, it clocks in at a little over an hour and a half, but it's very pacey. It doesn't lag anywhere.
Yeah.
There might be a few moments here and there you're just but it takes its time to kind of establish the emotional connections.
Yeah, the slowdowns are intentional and they never feel boring.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so let's go ahead and get into the dessert round. So, I shall go first, as is tradition.
As is often custom, yes.
One of the things I really liked about this movie at the time, I don't think I appreciated it as much at the time as I do now. But looking back, this is something I really enjoy about this movie and about other media that takes this tack, is it does not try to over-explain everything. It doesn't have to make sense. Again, it doesn't matter how the zombie apocalypse happened.
And the exact biology of how it gets fixed also doesn't matter.
Yeah. This is a story that it's more about the message and the magic than it is about being right and being realistic. Mm-hmm. And I think for a long time we have swung really far into the hyper-realism and this sort of gritty, grimdark way of exploring themes.
Or even more so, just feeling the need to explain every little thing.
Yeah. Down to the minutia. And that's exhausting, and it has become exhausting. So there's a time and place for that. I appreciate it from time to time. And sometimes because I am super analytical, I have a bad habit of picking apart, well, that wouldn't have happened. Or that wouldn't have happened like that. Or this wouldn't have happened that way, or whatever. But I don't know. I am coming to a point where I appreciate, once again, things that are a little bit more fairy tale in how they're told. Again, the point is the message. There's magic in the message. It is not getting everything nailed down. Because you get weighed down in the minutia that way. And also it's just, I don't know, it's just kind of at a certain point it can be uninteresting because it's whatever, I live in the real world. This is supposed to be escapism. Mm-hmm. And I see elements of that creeping into or informing my own writing, because I try to I sort of split the difference, I think, between this sort of fairy tale logic and the hyper realism, where I try to be in my storytelling, I try to make it feel grounded in the real world, but also leave a lot of wiggle room for the mystery of magic.
Well, yeah, you kind of tend to play in the realm between urban fantasy and magic realism.
Yeah.
And those share a lot. They're different, but they have that in common.
They can go really well together.
Yeah.
And yeah, for me anyway, I think magic, there should be an element of the unexplained. That's what makes it magical. And you can try to make, I think, getting a bit into the weeds here about my own stuff, but in The Harrowing of Minerva Damson, there is the Order of Joan, and their whole purpose is to regulate the boundary between the magical world and the non-practicing world, and trying to keep both safe. Keep both safe from each other.
Yeah.
So for them, it is important for them to try to understand how magic works. because they're trying to sort of manage that all the time. But even they don't really know, and they admit that they don't really know exactly how it works. They know like sort of the broad strokes, but the more you try to look at it and create hard and fast rules, it's kind of like quantum physics or whatever. It falls apart. You can't. Magic is magic. It defies
definition.
It defies definition. And in fact, it's kind of like the whole participatory universe thing. The very act of you trying to categorize it and interacting with it in any way could change the outcome. Like, it behaves differently when observed than when it is just kind of doing its thing. So, which, if you're a science geek or anything, or if you're curious about the whole, concept of the participatory universe,
it's worth looking into.
Yeah, it's worth looking into. It's pretty mind-bendy when you start getting into it. But going back to Warm Bodies, this is one of those refreshing stories that it's more concerned with the heart of the issue, and it's more concerned with, I want to take these two Barbies and make them smash together in this certain way. I want to put these characters through so many scenarios, and the plot is really just an excuse to do it in a specific way. It is character driven. It is not about, we don't care about realism here. We just want the characters to be under so many circumstances and scenarios. So this is one of those movies that really scratched that itch for me at the time, and that I really appreciate now.
And that maybe you didn't know you needed at the time.
I remember leaving the movie theater and being like, wow, that was so refreshing.
Well, yeah, I remember we both really enjoyed it, but maybe you couldn't put a finger on all the reasons why.
Yeah, at the time I think we were still so, like, novice. I don't know, in the jungle of all the, hyper-realism. Like,
well, and also, like, kind of novice as creatives at the time.
We were still
this has been
developing.
10 years now?
Yeah, I feel like I have a lot more language for the things that I am noticing, and a greater ability to kind of deconstruct the things that I'm consuming, which is exactly why we have this podcast. Which, incidentally, like, we're doing a lot of movies. My family was a huge, like, movie buff family.
Same here.
But so Monster Prom is a game, and in the future we do want to talk about books and TV shows and
even musical albums.
Yeah, musical albums, podcasts, that kind of thing. But right now, as we're sort of getting our feet, movies are sort of that easy thing that we can get together and sort of consume in one go.
Well, yeah.
Movies are fast food.
Yeah.
Yes.
Like, you sit down, it's an hour and a half to 2 hours, and then you can talk about it.
Yeah.
That's not so true with a book or a game or TV series.
So a lot of the things that we're going to talk about now and in the future, because I know a lot of movies, they're going to be movies, but we are going to be talking about other things peppered in there in between. I definitely want to, like, say that, because...
Yeah. Movies happen to be friendlier for the format and for our schedules.
Yes.
But we're going to try our best.
That's why we call it media morsels, not movie morsels. Mm-hmm. But yeah, and movies are a very specific kind of storytelling as well.
Yes.
And we're looking at a whole bunch of different kinds of storytelling and artistic sort of... expressions. So, yeah, I think that's me...
My dessert round's going to be short. It shares a lot in common with what Jess was saying. Like, I tend to play in a space where when I'm writing stories, I don't care about the nitty-gritty, really. I am not a hard sci-fi guy. I am not a Brandon Sanderson. The magic is explained to the point where it's physics kind of guy. For me, the elements and the mechanics of a story universe are there to serve a plot and a theme. And so the way this movie works very much gels with how I like to think about story. Everything is in service to conveying that theme and that feeling. However, on a more granular level, since I am the plot guy...
Yeah, I'm the character person, and you're the plot guy.
And as the plot guy, I found a really interesting tool in here that I was already starting to use, but now that I've kind of laid a finger and put a name to it, can more intentionally use in future. And that is this. Perry dies in maybe the first 20 minutes of the film, and so his development as a character ends. He cannot change. However, he remains a presence through the remainder of the film, in memory and in dream.
Yeah.
And his presence is still able to influence the plot and the character's actions, and it is still present in all of the themes.
And yet it's also kind of interesting because, like, he is dead.
Yeah, like, super dead. He's not coming back. He's not zombie dead. He's plain dead.
But R is just, he's zombie dead. And so everything that Perry is finished. It's done. It's final. Even though that his actions and his feelings echo on through R. But R he is still, like, despite being dead, he was, as a zombie, a lot more alive than Perry in some ways at the end of Perry's life. And R continues to evolve.
Yes, but more so for me, specifically in this case, it's the fact that, like, I'm thinking of a very specific story that I'm working on right now.
Yes.
Where a character that has died continues to have a presence in the plot long after.
Yes.
And now that I have sort of put a finger on that, I feel like the sequel I've been sitting on for a little while can maybe progress with a little bit more coherence.
Really?
That's right.
I'm excited.
Do we have a title?
Not yet, because I'm not ready to reveal that. But once I get a computer that works, yes, I will gladly reveal it.
Okay, well, my main takeaways. So, we had a conversation about vibes versus style.
Yes.
This movie, it doesn't really have vibes that we've come across, because vibes, we've established that vibes are they're more grounded. They're more like, kind of like...
Well, no, I feel like vibes are less grounded. They're more nebulous.
Yeah, they're kind of like an abstract, like, emotion you're going for.
Okay.
Whereas,
that
like...
permeates the whole work.
Okay.
Style is more like the specific, like, this is the look and feel, and this is the message we're going for.
Yeah,
and,
like
and
you
that's the goal.
You sacrifice what?
You sacrifice realism.
Yeah, you sacrifice realism for style.
Yeah. It's kind of like an impressionist painting. If you look too close, it's just a bunch of blobs.
Yeah.
But if you stand back and let your eyes, unfocus a little, you get a picture.
Yeah, and it can convey an emotion or a message in some ways a lot more clearly than if you had focused on
the minutia of
like
structure,
ultra realism.
Yeah.
The only vibes that I think exist in this story are just the overwhelming, like, 2010s vibes. But the style is...
I mean, whenever you have, like, a PSP in there, like, I mean, you have to have a little bit of dated technology in there.
This movie smells like craft beer, clove cigarettes, and GameStop carpet. Like,
okay.
It's just that very, like...
You know what? You're not wrong.
Yeah, it's that specific kind of, like, nerdy, hipster, maybe vintage stock carpet.
So that's like, so that's the vibes, I'm guessing.
Yeah.
That's the vibes. And the style is, well, I guess we've already kind of talked about it.
Well, it's
is
in the
that
stylization.
It is in that
It's in the magic.
refusal to answer the background questions that don't matter.
Yeah.
And explicitly stating.
It doesn't
They don't
matter.
Yeah, they don't matter. What matters is the reconnection and the love.
Yeah, what matters is the reconnection, the love, the hand touching. What matters is, like, the memories of people. What matters is, like, as Marcus, well, M, now known as Marcus, had said, summertime. And, like,
Cream of wheat.
Cream of wheat.
Well, and the sort of things that serve that is, in the beginning, the film is, there's sort of like a cool filter over everything. It's something that kind of, like, leeches the
color,
life out of it.
yeah.
Although R is wearing a red hoodie, which
Themes,
which
yeah.
kind of it already is more eye-popping than what everybody else is wearing.
Spot the protagonist.
Yeah.
And then over time, it, that coolness warms and warms as he is warming until you get to the end.
Until he has a warm body.
Yeah. And then you get to the end and it's very, like, all the colors are very rich and yellow and
green
bright. And so, I mean, those are the stylistic elements that help create.
Well, he even seems like in the very beginning, whenever he was a zombie, it seemed like he was impersonating like the goth kids from South Park.
Yeah,
it was very intentionally just like
ennui.
We don't care. Stop being so awkward. I also noticed a slight juxtaposition between Julie dressing up and R dressing up. Because,
Go on.
So at the beginning, whenever R is trying to save Julie,
he protects her by dressing her as a zombie.
Yeah, he protects her by dressing her up as a zombie, puts his gunks on her, and
He's disguising her as a zombie, and then she
disguises as a human.
Oh my gosh!
But here's the
I
real
love
kicker about
the
that.
mirrors.
Here's the real kicker about that. He has to dress her up multiple times because she keeps kind of like
rubbing it off,
either rubbing it off or being not revolted by it, but like rejecting that. But he, on the other hand, he's like, all right, this is fine.
He embraces his human glow up.
Yes. Yeah.
And so it was just a really interesting kind of footnote.
I didn't notice that, but that's really good.
There are a lot of really good intentional mirroring happening.
I feel like this. We'll have to look up the stats after the fact, but I don't remember this movie being like a blockbuster.
Yeah, I think it was well received by critics. I think I saw it was like in the 80s or something like that. But I don't know that people turned out to see it.
But I feel like it's underrated because it's smart.
Yeah.
Well, and
it's smart and cute.
Yeah, and to follow up with like Mitch's style versus vibes thing, like the reason it's style is because everything that has real weight in the movie is about the themes. Mm-hmm. It is about the memories, the connections, those sort of emotional reactions to things. Whereas if this was sort of a realistic and grounded zombie post-apocalypse that, we've all seen at least one of, the things that would have weight would be like the concrete things, survival, resources, all that other stuff. That's all hand-waved here. It doesn't actually matter. It's set dressing for the things that do.
But here's the thing, though. Like, that concreteness that you're talking about, that's... So... in most zombie things, like, you need those things, but the concrete things here in this movie
are the emotional.
Well, and that's exactly it. And that's the power of like style, being like stylistic in your delivery, because you can change where the weight sits.
Yep.
Okay, so on Rotten Tomatoes, it has an 81% critic score and a 73% audience score.
So pretty strong.
Although, it's one of those things that it was like strong at the time, but I don't know if I don't see people don't really referring to it very often.
I mean, if you guys want to, go ahead and go back to Rotten Tomatoes and maybe consider, bumping up a
that
couple.
Score a little.
Maybe a 75 at least, I feel.
Yeah. So your takeaways, because I feel like I remember you saying at the beginning of this that this movie did kind of influence you in some ways.
It did a little bit, mostly because, like, as I was saying, like, I grew up in zombie apocalypses. Like,
fictional zombie apocalypses.
Fictional zombie apocalypse. So I was there with, watching Evil Deads. I was there watching
28 Days Later, 28 Weeks Later. I took my mom to that on Mother's Day, by the way. And, like, she was like, what should we go watch? And I was like, I really wanted to see 28 Weeks Later. And I guess the other thing that we were going to see was sold out. So I was like, let's go see 28 Weeks Later, Mom. It's going to be great. It's fine. And then as the... obviously it was not fine. It was like... instantly way more violent than I realized it would be.
Well, because Weeks is even more brutal than Days.
Yes,
it really
and
is.
there's that one scene at the beginning when like the dad is turned into a zombie and the mom is like, I don't know, I don't remember. She's like strapped to a gurney or a table or something. I don't even remember what. And he starts like, gouging out her eyes or something. And I just leaned over to my mom in the theater and whispered, "Happy Mother's Day."
Because you're a little shit.
And she was and she was like, mm-hmm. And I just remember like, I mean, at least I made a joke out of it. And so when we left, she was just like, okay. Like we were laughing about it.
Yeah.
If we ever need to talk about like scene setters, 28 weeks later, their opening scene is so fucking heavy, and it just instantly just sets you with dread.
Yeah.
Anyway, so you've been growing up with
today.
Yeah, we're talking about hope,
Evil
not
Dead.
Yes.
I grew up with all of these, very like human versus zombie kind of situations where, typically speaking, the real monsters are humans all along.
It's a fight for survival, and anything goes.
And we're gonna be all these ravagers and blah blah blah. And
communities aren't going to be important. They're going to be like top-down, miserable structures.
Well, yeah, like it's
really
low-key kind of like fascist messaging, like only the strong men will survive, and it's the power of the individual man.
And actually, like, communities will be like miserable.
Weakness.
No. A lot of times, with Walking Dead especially, they will go into this new community, like, oh, well, we've been accepted into this community, and the entire thing is so backwater and just so... There's always like seedy underbellies.
There's something bad happening because communities actually
you have
are bad.
You have the governor, and he has his undead daughter chained up to the back room, and his wall of zombie heads and mason jars, and then you have like just.
Well, and it's very much this vision of the world as this dog eat dog, only the strong survive, when in actuality, communities have been the strength of humanity literally since we became human and like beyond, So yeah, you might run into some fucked up communities, but the communities would really be like
the saving grace.
The saving grace of anybody in an apocalypse.
That sounds like socialism.
That's where you would find joy and connection and purpose, and this movie is all about finding the joy, connection, and purpose.
Yeah, and hope. Like, just, it's cute.
Yeah.
And, like, it's so cute, even John Malkovich, like, lowers his Beretta. Like,
yeah, he eventually succumbs to the cute.
Mm-hmm.
He's like, the situation has changed. Yay!
Well,
yay!
Yeah, that was the moment where it's like, the movie's either going to kill him off, or he's actually going to lighten up.
Yeah.
And because it is a light and airy movie with a message of hope, he relents.
He has his conversion moment, basically.
It's not in the rain, though.
That's right.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm not talking about like a religious conversion. It's more like this is where he realizes. Yeah. So, but sorry, did I interrupt you? You were talking about grew up and God damn it, I'm sorry.
You keep interrupting my dessert round, Jess.
Yeah, I know. I'm sorry. Okay. So you grew up with all the movies.
Yeah, I grew up with all the movies, and it's just, being re-emphasized. Yes, this is a lot better because it deals with hope. It's a zombie movie about hope. And you don't really see that too terribly often.
Yeah. And you as a person, I think, you're really way more like hope motivated. I think that's like a big part of
I try to be.
What I see in you.
Whenever I'm consuming my media, I try to. Like, yes, I do enjoy Walking Dead. Mostly because, like, most of these movies I watch because I think I look how creative they can be with the zombie killing, and like, you know, how gross something could be, like, pulled apart, or like
there's cool effects.
Yeah, there's cool effects, and like, oh, how did they get that sinew to look so realistic?
Yeah,
and how did they make that blood splotch look really good? Like, that's nice.
Well, yeah, I feel like you have kind of an interesting relationship with horror movies, and we've talked about this just one-on-one before.
It's just so interesting. Like,
well, yeah, you don't really experience the horror because you're thinking so much about the mechanics of how they got that screen presence.
The practical effects.
And this movie is zombies exist, and they're just kind of there. Like, they're just gray-looking humans.
You can focus on the rest of the movie.
Yeah, like the bonies and how they shouldn't work.
Yeah. Well, and I also want to say, like, there's nothing wrong with liking the hyper-realistic and even, like, nihilistic stories, because sometimes, you know, it takes all stories. It takes all types of stories. Those stories do have value, too. They're just...
shouldn't be all there is.
It shouldn't be all there is. Like, it shouldn't be the dominant... I don't think it should be the dominant force.
Yeah, we don't want to yuck your yuck.
That's a good way of putting it. But
yuck,
like...
yuck being, you know, the... exceptionally gross out kind of scenario.
The despair, the grittiness, the gore, whatever have you.
We understand it's intentionally set that way because it's also telling its own story.
Well, its own style. It's its own stylization.
Yes.
But like, especially for when this movie came out, around 2013, we were just coming off a decade of like gritty, rough and tumble, despairing, dark, edgy fiction. It's like, I'm kind of tired of it.
And this was one of those, from my recollection, this was one of the first sort of ones to ring that in the sci-fi sort of...
in the spec fic arena.
Yeah, because you had things like Juno and Dan in Real Life before that were a lot
those
more...
were like weird indie films.
Yeah, they were indie films. This one was a lot more... It was in the sci-fi space, and it was also like a bigger profile studio that was creating it. So... yeah. Well, do you have a Hamometer for us, Mitch?
Yeah.
So Hamometer, if you're not aware, is my silly little scale that I like to put towards media, basically telling all you people around, you know, how exceptionally ridiculous this movie is.
Yeah.
One can be anywhere from your Schindler's List to your more serious roles, and then 10s being anywhere between, you know, Army of Darkness or Monty Python, that sort of stuff.
Anything made by
Mel Brooks.
Anything
made by Mel Brooks.
Although, anyway, this specific movie, there's not too much ham, honestly. It's a finely shaved ham.
It is
it's
optimistic.
very sincere.
Yeah, it's sincere.
Yes, it's very sincere. And so I'm going to score this a 3.
Wow. Break it down for us.
Okay, so 1 point for R's monologue. Like his internal monologue. 1 point from John Malkovich.
Yep.
And then 1 point...
would it be for M?
I think M he's really funny. He's like the comic.
No. Okay.
Okay.
M gets half a point.
Half point. Okay.
And then Nora gets the other half.
Yes,
because Nora is she's an amazing actress.
She's got a big personality.
Yeah.
She is the ride or die friend, and she pulls a gun on her best friend's dad. It's great.
She only has a few lines, but
she
has a big presence.
Oh yeah.
She gets an arc.
Yeah, she does.
She has very limited presence in the film, but she does get an arc, and that's impressive.
Honestly, I don't really get how... sometimes I don't really understand how the Hamometer works.
We should collate it all at some point. Actually,
I feel like...
a suggestion for our website. Keep a running tab of the Hamometer.
Yeah,
and where everything falls.
I guess because like I would not rate this lower than The Ghost and Mrs. Muir.
I will come to his defense on this one, because I would say, because The Ghost and Mrs. Muir is like old Hollywood, they had a tendency to act big, and especially the captain himself. That performance was
exceptionally hammy.
It was Long John Silver's mascot acting. And it was still deeply affecting, and I loved him dearly.
Yeah. There was a lot of scenery chewing.
But it was big. So, I'm actually kind of on the same page with him here.
I mean, I'm just a weird person in general, so, I tend to see different...
You're going to operate on a different scale.
Yeah.
Are you suggesting that we're different people and we have different criticisms?
Oh my god.
It's
different opinions?
It's almost like there's a reason this show has different hosts.
Yeah.
I'm the host?
Yeah, you're one of the co-hosts. Yeah.
I feel wanted.
Yeah, duh.
You are wanted, dumbass.
Yeah, you are, in fact, listed as one of the co-hosts on the website, which I still haven't launched yet, but it's coming out.
We have a website. Where's that URL?
We don't have a website yet because I haven't paid for it.
We are going to soon have a website.
If you would like to support us on Patreon...
We don't have a Patreon.
You'll have to support us through the Herring of Minerva Damson Patreon.
Yeah.
Which is very much worth it because there is some Patreon-exclusive content at theorderofjoanheadquarters.com.
That is true.
Oh, there's new stuff coming out pretty soon, too, isn't there?
We're working on Goliad Gabby, which is the interseason arc. I'm trying to get out the next episode of the Delilah Docs, which is the Patreon exclusive series.
And there is going to be a teaser dropping for that relatively soon.
Yes, actually. And
to give you a taste of what you might be missing out on.
Tons of archives and stuff. Not that that's necessarily relevant to media morsels, but if you're curious about the kinds of media I create, at least, because that's what's out there right now. We create. I'm sort of like the head creator of it, but
it's your baby and we provide support.
Yes. If you're curious about the kinds of things we create,
it takes a village to raise a baby.
Yeah, and then a baby.
and this movie is about the value of community building, and we believe
are community,
in that.
Yes. And so if you are curious about that, you can check out my other podcast, The Harrowing of Minerva Damson.
And there might be other projects on the horizon coming from us, too.
Mm-hmm. Super excited about that. We also have a Media Morsels mascot that soon we hope
to be revealed. Unearthed, discovered.
Yes.
Released.
Unleashed.
Oh, that's ominous.
Mm-hmm. As it should be. Yeah, so are we... I mean, we've got the hammometer squared away.
Yeah, we got that. Yeah. I think we got...
your key takeaways addressed.
Yeah.
Jess stole half of them.
I really do. I get really excited. I have ADHD, so I tend to... if I'm trying to hold an idea in my head, it's always at risk of flying out, at any moment, and I'll lose it, and I won't be able to pick it up again. So I have a bad habit of breaking into the middle of a conversation to get the thing out so I don't forget it.
You have two choices. It's either going to fly out of your head or fly out of your mouth.
Yeah, it has to go one way. But I am trying to be better about that because I do want you guys to have, actual time to talk.
Well, to be fair, you also, whenever you start hearing whenever I say, because I'm very, very soft-spoken in the first place, you have a tendency of grabbing hold of the important bits and actually do say what I mean.
Helping you draw it out.
You do help draw it out.
I try to, clarify or elaborate.
Yeah, it's it's a little bit of a hard job understanding what the Mitchie says, and I understand this.
A Mitchie translator.
Mm-hmm.
He's a very visual man.
Yes.
Not a very wordsy man.
Yes.
I mean, even though he takes all of the notes, he can't formulate his own statements to say his life. It's fine.
And in your defense, babe, you are getting better.
Okay, good.
Character development in real life is happening.
In real time. It's documented.
There's a little bit of ribbing, but just a little.
Yeah.
We all love each other here.
Yes,
it's fine.
yes. So we all have really, I think, interesting things to say.
Yeah.
So
very different perspectives on the things.
Yes, indeed. But I guess It's time.
Time to clear those plates.
Clear the plates.
Wipe the brains off of your hoodie pockets.
We've cleared so many plates. Did anybody actually do the dishes yet?
You are the dish boys.
There is a tale behind the dish boy thing that may be told on air at some point, but not today.
But not
It is
tonight.
not yet this day.
It is time. It's 11:30. It's time
Yeah,
to bring this to a close.
It's late real time.
Yes. So
It is time.
thank you for joining us at the table this week. We loved having you here. We would love to hear from you. We do have an Instagram at media_morsels, as if you want to reach out to us there.
Be on the lookout for our up-and-coming website, and I believe there's a Discord on the horizon as well.
Yes, we would very much like that. And next month, our theme is Medieval March, and we will have a lot of really fun medieval fantasy choices on offer.
Do we want to give the full lineup?
Yeah, so, okay, currently, barring things changing, the lineup is, there's 5 Thursdays in March. We have A Knight's Tale, Legend, Lady Hawk, Ever After.
Oh, Ever After.
Yes, a flip script that is...
Our very first flip script.
Yes.
By yours truly. I keep mentioning it during our Hamometer sections. We're finally going to tackle Army of Darkness.
I'm genuinely thrilled because freshman year dorm, I walked into his room in the middle of this movie, was like, wow, that looks stupid, but could not look away.
And it will be my first time watching this.
It's entrancing.
Yes.
Truly.
And then hopefully we will also have one bonus episode because we really want to talk about this. We will have something called a half-baked episode where we talk about a piece of media that for some reason didn't quite land. Sometimes it's like you love it anyway. It's like a hot mess, but you love it. And sometimes it's like kind of infuriating and we're trying to like figure out what went wrong and how would you do it differently. And so for our first half-baked, we are looking at talking about The Green Knight. It came out very recently. I think it was 2020.
I imagine this might be a divisive choice.
This might, yes.
But we have feelings.
Yes, we do. So that is coming up on the horizon. And...
You know, it's Valentine's. Be sure to hug your loved ones.
Yeah.
Yes. Well, Valentine's
This
was
will be
probably
coming out
one of
just
them.
after Valentine's Day, but it's not too late.
Yeah, it's,
Yeah.
Okay. It's the month of love. Be sure to hug your loved
You know,
ones.
every day can be Valentine's Day if you want it to be.
Yeah, I was
as
just-
in a celebration of love.
This is a bit of a tangent, but it's a show about tangents at this point. Like, who in the hell decided Valentine's Day should be in the middle of winter?
I just find it annoying that the month of love is only so many days long.
It's the shortest month. What's
Yeah,
the deal
what
with
the
that?
fuck?
It's the least marketable one, I guess.
Well, no, it's quite marketable, but it's also like, get out of here with that love shit. Back to capitalism.
If it wasn't already clear, we're pretty left-leaning over here.
But that doesn't mean that you can't enjoy the finest swill on this china. You can be right next to us drinking this shit alongside us. So
And we'd love it if you would.
come join us in our like pigsty.
Yeah, come wallow in the trough with us.
Yeah.
Can't afford anything else.
Anyway, all right. Well, we're washing the fucking dishes. We're closing it down.
What, are we gonna wash the dishes in the trough?
Thank you for being here. If you want to invite anybody else to the
If you want to
fucking
avoid anybody
pigsty,
else.
please invite them. Send them a link to our show. We'd be happy to have them. And yeah, we hope you come back again, and we'll save you a seat.